Alright, so let's talk about the rocks that they used to kick out of the ground here in the Copper Basin. Alright guys, welcome to this episode of Rolling with T-Bone. As we're rolling out on Miss Kitty on a pretty gorgeous afternoon. A little bit windy, but not bad. About 60 degrees. If you're new here, welcome in. My name's T-Bone. I shoot motorcycle related content and, well, any kind of content really. If you are new here and you haven't hit the subscribe button, I invite you to go check out a few more of my videos. And if you think I'm right for you, consider giving me a subscribe and join the Rolling with T-Bone crew. If you're old here, welcome back. You know what's going on. Alright guys, so I come from a place that was predominantly, for the biggest part of its life, dominated by copper mining. And of course, along with the copper coming out of the ground, there was gold, there was silver. But copper predominantly was what was mined for. It's in the name, Copper Basin. If you've been following me and my channel here for any length of time at all, you know that I am a history buff. I love history, especially our local history. So I want to talk to you guys today just a little bit about how important the act of mining copper in our area actually really was. But right now we got to get to the place where I want to start talking about it. So catch y'all in just a quick second. Alright guys, sorry about that. I had to get a little closer to where I wanted to get to start talking about this stuff. Right here where I'm riding right now is Copper Hill, Tennessee. And it's a part of the Twin Cities, Copper Hill and McKaysville. Tennessee and Georgia converge right here. We just crossed that line. Now all of this right here at one time has been underwater, and at another time was buried under about 8 to 10 foot of snow. So we're going to talk about all that impact, the impact that every bit of that had, here in just a quick second. As soon as people decide they want to bow up and get out of a truck right in the middle of the road. Oh, man, I hope y'all have been getting to enjoy the weather. I know we haven't had a lot of consecutive good weather, but we've been having some decent weather, and spring is in the air. I mean, I'm here for it. I'm ready. I'm ready for spring, ready for summer. It's been a long, cold, depressing, just mentally depressing wear down on you winter. Might not be much better depression-wise, but it's better in the summertime, I think, personally. Alright guys, so we're coming up to the Tennessee Chemical Company, or what once was the Tennessee Chemical Company. It's just now called Copper Hill Industries. But this is the entrance to the Tennessee Chemical Company. Now, this is significant because several things happened in this area in the late 80s and the 90s that really molded and shaped this whole area. And as you can see, the train yard is now set empty. So in 1987, if you Google, let me just start with this. If you Google, Copper Hill, Tennessee strikes, you will first read about a big strike that happened in 1939, and that was the smelter strike. Of course, the smelting process is where they separate the copper from the other ore. And of course, this area had a company store where all the miners would go and do their shopping, just like small town USA, West Virginia, coal mining. And that store was right there, which now it's a big fireworks store with planes and stuff sitting out front of it. But this whole area has been ran predominantly by copper. Copper was in the name. You had Ducktown, Copper Hill, and McKaysville. and all three towns thrived off of the copper mining industry. Now, I'm not going to be able to fit all this into this one video, and I know that time just won't allow it. So where I want to start at is 1987, and one of the first big significant things that happened in this area, and that being what closed down first. And that was at the end of this road. It was called the Tennessee Shaft. It closed in 1987. Now, there's another mine right across the road down just a little ways called the Mary Mine. The mines began closing down here. And my uncle, I have an uncle who, the last relative I remember that I can remember working in the mines. And I asked him one time why they quit mining, if they had mined out all the copper. He said, "You will never," his exact words were to the effect of, "You will never mine out all the copper. There's still plenty of copper in the mines here." So that leaves you to think political, then it was political. But I don't want to get into that. But 1987, the Tennessee Shaft closes. I tried to find the exact date of when the strike began. There was another strike that went into the 90s, and it came on the heels of the closing down of the Tennessee Shaft. The Tennessee Chemical Company then went on strike, and it was, somebody who knows could probably jump down if I'm wrong about this and correct me in the comments, but I'm pretty sure it was the Boilermakers Union that went on strike. They were the last big union at the chemical company, and they went on strike. Now, I bring all that up to get to this point here. Growing up in this area as a kid, we all, you know, my mom had 8 sisters. There was 9 daughters. All of them had kids, and the ones who still lived here, at least the boy cousins, we all pretty well much assumed that at some point we was going to be spending time in the copper mines. That was a given because that was what the area done. So when the Boilermaker went on strike, when that big strike happened, a lot of other things happened. In 1990, you had a flood, and every bit of Copper Hill, McCaysville went underwater. The Toccoa River flooded. Then in 1993, we had the blizzard, which covered the entire southeast. And this area got about somewhere between 8 to 10 foot of snow dumped on it. Now, what that means for the area is the economy had already taken 2 big hits before the blizzard ever came. It had taken the closing of the mine, the Tennessee Shaft closing. It had taken the flood that had happened, and that was actually, the flood is what caused Copper Hill to go into bankruptcy. Was they were trying to help the business owners, but the little town just didn't have the money to do a lot after a natural disaster like that. And even with federal assistance, with you know, insurance payouts, the damage, the entire infrastructure of the city, of the Twin Cities, McCaysville and Copper Hill, the entire infrastructure took a hit. Now, McCaysville fared just a little better because it was in Georgia, and Georgia had a little bit better funds than what the state of Tennessee had at the time when the flood happened. But all of that stuff happened just in a 4 to 5 year time period, and it really knocked the crap out of the economy here. There was you know, all of the guys at the you know, at the chemical company who went on strike were, of course, walking the picket line. So all of us who grew up and had family in the mining business knew we weren't crossing the picket line as scabs. But what you had a small area that had already taken a couple of big natural disaster economical hits. Then you had the chemical company go on strike, the workers go on strike, and they kind of went out and sucked up all of the little jobs in the area that could have been, a high schooler's job or someone who graduated school. So you couldn't get mad at the guys who went on strike, or I tried not to. I tried not to look at it as negative. I just tried to look at it as, hey, those guys were working and now they're on strike. And I think the highest paid guy on strike, and this could be completely wrong, but this came from someone who was on the picket line. I think the highest paid guy was like $80 a week. Was what the union paid them to be on strike, was like $80 a week. So you're not doing much on $80 a week. But they sucked up all the little jobs, and it was kind of like they were trying to get to the other side of the strike. Well, in the meantime, while the strike's going on, Tennessee Chemical Company files bankruptcy and closes down. So at this point, when that happens, it makes the strike null and void. The strike has absolutely no purpose because now the chemical company is closed down. So even if they got to the other side of the strike, there would be no jobs for the guys to come back to. So that was a hit that hurt, that reverberated everywhere, because all of us in Generation X who would now come into age to go to work, there weren't no jobs. The guys who had worked for the company for all those years, there wasn't no jobs. So a lot of people, had to leave town and go to, go to other places where there was some industry. I see you, buddy. Stay over there in the grass, bark all you want. Most of us, and I did at one point, and I'm kind of like my dad, ended up in Dalton, Georgia, working for the carpet industry, working for Mohawk Industries. I did my time with Mohawk up until hardwood flooring came along in the late 90s and the early 2000s. Hardwood flooring took off big time again, and it literally buried the carpet industry. I mean, I got, laid off from my job, and they ended up closing down because you would work swing shifts. You'd work 2 on, 3 off, 3 on, 2 off. 12-hour swing shifts. And then all of a sudden they're knocking it back to 5/8, and they're still having to lay people off. So the writing was kind of on the wall there. So I was able to stay in the area, stay local, because I had originally thought that in my part in working in the company, as I had talked to the guy who owned K&S Tank Lines, which that's what the Tennessee Chemical Company did, was they hauled sulfuric acid. Huge business sulfuric acid was. They would haul it in 18-wheeler tankers. They would haul it out in train tankers. So I kind of figured I would end up getting a CDL license, and I had talked to the guy, Greasy Stewart. Locals know exactly who I'm talking about. And that was kind of where I thought I would end up when I was 21, was driving a tanker for him, hauling sulfuric acid up and down the Old Copper Road or the River Road. You've seen that in some of my older videos. But, yeah, I mean, we were in a, the Appalachian Mountains from foot to top was always behind, it seemed. Always with a lot of people below the poverty line. But when when the company closed down and all of the minerals quit being mined, that was a blow that came on the heels of 2 natural disasters that the area just really could not recuperate from. So like I said, leaving here, going to the carpet industry, a lot of guys left here and went up north to find work. Brown Stove in Cleveland, Tennessee was a big place, Cleveland Chair. So there was jobs on assembly lines, factory work. But of course, you know, it's factory work. They wanted so much. You had to have so much experience. Of course, you're thinking, well, hell, how am I supposed to get experience if you don't give me a job? So there wasn't just jobs to be had back in the 90s. So what got me onto this was, you know, Recycled Hooligan was talking about the work that they used to have in Alabama where he's at. And I've been through the same thing. You know, you don't want to take these little crap jobs because they're taking advantage of you as an employee. You know, their mentality is they're not happy to have an employee. They think that you should be happy to have them as an employer. So I've been there, I've done that, I know what he's going through. But, you know, when that copper mine closed down, guys, it was a hit to our area, man. It was a bad hit. And like I said, you compound it up with everything else that happened around that same time. And, you know, people, and I've heard people get down, you know, on this and on that. Well, you shouldn't do this. I'm going to tell you something, mountain people know how to survive. And moonshine was a great supplemental thing for income, and it always has been. I mean, it always has been. One of the greatest things that ever happened to the moonshine industry was, of course, back in the 30s, was Prohibition. That was the greatest thing that ever happened to moonshine, because all those guys in Chicago and New York and Boston and Philadelphia that had speakeasies, there was a demand for alcohol, and they found out coming from the Appalachian Mountains that moonshine was readily available. I mean, you had guys who could run off 400 gallons just in a short amount of time, and everyone was doing it. So it's kind of one of those things that came out of the necessity of hard times. You know, living on the poverty line, and some families even living below the poverty line. I'm not going to lie, you growing up, my dad, the way things were, we lived below the poverty line. But you know, that's just kind of small town USA. But I just kind of wanted to talk to you about the history of my area. Beautiful ride, because I can promise you, when I was a kid, it wasn't as beautiful riding as it is now, because everything was just red dirt, just red clay, red dirt. And future T-Bone, if you get a chance, look up some pictures and see if you can put some pictures in this video at different spots for references. But yeah, guys, that's kind of the way the world worked back then. You know, copper brought this place to life, and then copper killed it. If you have anything made of copper in your house that came from the 40s, the 50s, 60s, and 70s, odds are pretty good that the copper came from Copper Hill, Tennessee, Ducktown, Tennessee. There was silver mines. Number 20 silver mine, about a mile away from my house, mile and a half away from my house. Mining was big business in this area back in the day. And you could scratch out a good living if you knew what you were doing, and if you got lucky. And of course, you know, I think about the coal miners up in West Virginia. They had it so much worse, I think, than the copper miners, because the coal was just seemed to be a lot dirtier than the copper mines did. But of course, I could be wrong. I never got to, it never stayed open long enough for me to actually go into the mine and find out for myself what it was like. But tell you what, guys, there it is, the copper mines. digging the ore out of the ground in the Copper Basin area. I love our history. You know, history is important. The history of your area. I mean, I love history. I love knowing how old things used to work, and I get nostalgic about it. I'm not gonna lie, I do. I get nostalgic. I have a certain amount of nostalgia build up for these things. But I'll tell you what, guys, I think that's where I'm going to drop off today's video. We're getting on closer to spring. Still got winter. I mean, we're still in February. Today's like February the 15th. So we've still got to get through February. We got to get through March. And March is the flip of the coin in the South. You cannot predict the March weather in the South. But I'm going to drop it right here, guys. Remember to like, share, comment, subscribe. Maybe if you've got a video about your hometown and a little bit of history of your hometown, drop it down in the comments and let me know so I can go check it out for myself. And if you get a chance, there is things about the Copper Basin area on YouTube. There's videos about the flood that happened, about the blizzard. If you get a chance, go check all that stuff out and watch it. It was kind of cool because it was weird living through it. It was weird living through it. But guys, until the next time, y'all take care of yourselves. Take care of each other. And hey, thanks for watching.